Positivity and trust are key to a good relationship between patients and clinicians. Carrie Samarco and her patient Kenya talk candidly about their relationship and how they work together as a team to better manage Kenya's MS.
Hi and welcome. I'm Carrie Samarco and I'm a nurse practitioner. And today we're going to be sitting down with Kenya McCall and having a conversation about her journey with multiple sclerosis. Kenya, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I'm really overwhelmed with the fact that you've agreed to just talk to me and share a little bit about your life, your journey, and your story about living with MS. So
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So would you share with me a little bit about how your journey with MS began and what that was like?
My journey with MS, it started in 1992 when I was in college. And I started having problems with my legs. And I went to the hospital and they couldn't figure out what it was. So I ended up taking a semester off of school and went to school at home in New York City. They thought I had lupus, tested me for all these other things, didn't find out anything. Returned back to college, life as usual, nothing was really going on. And I want to say in about 1995, started working out and would get this really bad itch in my legs. Had no idea what was going on. Okay. I said, oh, because I'm overweight, my legs are rubbing. That's the friction. Fast forward, I'm pregnant, have my daughter, and in 2001, I just started feeling off balance. I went through a circular door in the hospital and hit the wall and went to the emergency room, and they said it was vertigo. And told me, if I don't feel better in 2 weeks, contact your doctor. Didn't feel better in 2 weeks. Got a new doctor, contacted the doctor, and he didn't like the way I was walking. He was doing all these different tests in his office. Sent me for an MRI. And my daughter was almost a year when I got the diagnosis, highly suggestive of MS from the MRI.
I mean, that must have just blown you away. What was that like, being a new mom, contending with this new diagnosis? How did you feel and what happened next?
It was the scariest thing in the world. I thought I wouldn't be able to raise my daughter. I was a single parent, and I was like, how am I going to do this? You know, my balance was off. I was having a problem using my right hand, so to try to bathe a one-year-old toddler, that was almost impossible.
And are you a righty?
Yes, I'm a righty. And thank God to my parents and my family, they assisted me. Because, you know, you have a toddler, they're moving around in the tub. It was a problem. It was really, really scary. My goal was just to live long enough and to be healthy enough so that my daughter could take care of herself. She's 16 now. She's a junior in high school. Oh. We're looking at colleges, and I never thought I'd be sitting here looking like this healthy and being able to have a career, have a life, and just live.
So you talked a little bit about your primary care doctor and how when going to him, it was he, right? How he helped to kind of steer you in the right direction, right? So what happened next?
He was pivotal. Like, once I got the diagnosis, I just lost it. I had no idea what MS really was, but I had heard of it. And I just called my mom on the phone at the doctor's office, and I cried. And he said, it's not a death sentence. He said, you may be, have some type of disability. He said, but don't give up. He said, I'm going to find you the best doctor. He said, give me about a week or two, and I'm going to get back to you. And my doctor, he researched, and he found an MS specialist, and that's how I ended up where I am today.
That's amazing. So he really was an advocate for you. I mean, he helped you through that journey to get you to a place where ultimately you still are now, right?
Yes, and it wasn't easy, because even from the initial MRI, so I think I started going to see the specialist like in September of 2002. Okay. Official diagnosis did not come to December, because every other test would not rule out MS. Because, I guess with the MRI, it's not enough. So it was the spinal tap. Okay. That was the determining factor that it was MS.
And then ultimately, it was then in December that
Yep.
You received this final diagnosis.
Yes.
And then what next?
Oh, I was terrified. That's all I could say. I was so afraid. And it was horrible because my MS, it was like in full, it was just flaring up.
What were you experiencing physically, emotionally?
I had optic neuritis, so
Okay.
I had blurriness in my vision.
Okay.
I was having problems with my right side.
What kind of problems? What do you mean by that?
The tingling, the pins and needles, so not really being able to feel properly. And even walking, I feel like my leg my right leg would fling out to the right a little. My speech, sometimes I feel like I sound like almost if I had a stroke. And it would come and go, like my speech would be fine, and all of a sudden I was like, I couldn't pronounce certain sounds. And then it would go away and come back. And
How long was this happening for? I mean, what?
this was going on until I got my final diagnosis, and then was now getting on medication. That was a whole nother process.
Okay.
Finding the right medication, getting approval from the insurance company, and just getting it to kick in and start to work. And thank God it started to work. And my doctor, when we finally did another set of MRIs after being on medication, he was like, all your lesions are closed. I didn't have any more active lesions. I had active lesions in my brain and in my spinal column. So my MS was very active. And he said he'd never seen anything like that, how I just responded so well to the medication.
You mentioned your mom, and when you called her hysterical, and how your parents were so present to help you as a new mom with a young child, as a single mom, and now receiving this diagnosis. And how has your support network helped to shape your journey?
My support network has been everything. I'm not going to just leave it to my mom and my dad. Like, I'm the oldest. My siblings, like, everyone pitched in. They were there for me. My college girlfriends, oh my God. Like, if I couldn't do something, I remember one time I wasn't feeling well enough and we were going to take the kids roller skating. They came and took my daughter so that she can go roller skating because the fatigue was really that bad that particular day. Without having people in your corner, it's almost impossible, not just for the physical support, but emotional support, just a sounding board that someone, when you confused or you're scared, just to be able to talk to them about it.
Well,
it's everything.
It's someone to talk to,
Yeah.
right? But that also entails you have to share your experience. They need to know what's going on.
Yeah, and if they're going to understand me, because I have to live with this, you have to share your experience. They can never fully understand MS because they don't live with it, but it's the people you love and you care about, you have to share your experience so they can have a little bit more empathy, compassion, and try to understand the best that they can.
So it's interesting because, over the years I've spoken with a lot of people who are living with multiple sclerosis, and sometimes people will struggle and say, like, I don't want to burden people, or I don't want, they're going through their own thing and I don't want to talk about it. And yet I can see how that really limits their support network and the sphere of people around them that can help them through what they're going through, the positives, the negatives, and everything. Do you have any advice as to how someone who maybe is a little trepidatious, they're struggling with sharing, how they can kind of get over that hump?
I think, you just have to tell people about MS on a level that they can understand.
Okay.
Don't get too technical because, it can be scary.
Right.
But just give people a little bit and see how they respond.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how people would be there for you. And everybody's living with something. So if you're afraid to share, then they're not sharing with you because they're going through something. And just having casual conversation, you're able to get connected to other people. Maybe if I tell my mom, my MS is really bothering me, she said, oh, yeah, the lady in my job, her daughter has MS. Maybe you guys should speak, or they're able to share information. My mother came into some really good information about MS, just having a conversation with a lady in the bank who had multiple sclerosis. And she directed my mom she said, tell your daughter to contact the MS Society. She gave my mom a lot of good pieces of information. I was newly diagnosed.
Okay, so
I didn't
this
know
was early on.
anyone.
Yeah.
There's no one in my immediate circle at that time had multiple sclerosis. It's only now that in time, 2 or 3 girlfriends that I went to college or passed through college with have MS. But I have prior to that, I had no friends or anyone I know who'd had it.
Okay. So your mom being kind of open about it, just
Yes.
in general on the bank line, she ends up getting this information that
Connected me to the MS Society.
and early on, what were the things that you took from the MS Society that you found really helpful as a newly diagnosed person?
Just information. You don't even know where to look. So just to have someone like, okay, if you have questions, I'm here. They gave me websites. This is a resource. And then the best thing they gave me was actually telling me that I could get a permit to help me with my parking because I was having problems with my right side. And I was still trying to go to work, be a single parent, So it was like that bit of information made my life, like my ability to get around so much better.
So it sounds like the communication that you had with the people around you, your family, your close friends, even just individuals who might be available to offer you some really important information and resources. Was that something that you started once you were diagnosed, or do you think that you were kind of an open, sharing, communicative person beforehand? Because maybe that'll really shape someone's journey too.
I think I'm naturally an open person,
Yeah.
but I feel we all have something to share. And I just believe if you keep things to yourself, it just makes the situation worse. Because by speaking to people, it allows you to get the emotions out. And I've met people over the years, and I have no problem telling people I have multiple sclerosis. And then people random call me, people I've spoken to 2-3 years ago, Kenya, my friend, a guy I'm dating, they think he has MS. What should he do? So I end up kind of being a resource, like direct people, well, find you a good neurologist. They need an MRI, and if your friend wants to talk, he can reach out to me.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised just by sharing your story. It never fails. If I'm in a room and I say, I have MS, and we're talking, everybody separates. When it's over, someone's coming up to me
Like, walk
and
up.
asking me a question because
Yeah.
they know someone's suffering in silence.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so many people who don't reach out.
But because you put it out there,
Yeah.
you're creating this environment where someone else who maybe has been living in silence is able to come up and say, wait a second, here's someone that is talking about it, is
Yeah.
putting it out there. It's not, this thing that kind of lives in the shadows, right? You talked about your daughter earlier, and now
Yeah.
she's 16. Whoa.
I know, right?
Looking at colleges, whoa, that's amazing. I know you're super, super proud of her. We talk
Yeah.
about her a lot. So what is her understanding of MS? And do you remember the first conversation you had about MS with her?
I don't really remember the first conversation because it's so natural to me. It was a part of my life. And as she got older, I just tell her, Mommy, she's sick, she has an illness. And I kind of just told her what the effects was. Okay. Sometimes I'll be really tired or and if I was having problems with my eyes, because I think I had optic neuritis 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of was very open with her, but on a level that a child could understand.
Right.
And it even got to the point when one of the medications had an auto-injector. And she started giving me my medication. She's like, Mommy, I'm going to be your nurse. And she had to be about 3 or 4. And she doesn't even remember it to this day. And it was in the auto-injector, and she put it on my leg, and she hit the button. And she would do it for me all the time. I think it was every 2 or 3 days you had to do it. Yep.
That is, but also think about the things that as a mom, and I being a mom also, I get it, it's like we're teaching our kids that we need to engage in staying well. You are taking the injections to keep yourself well, to stay healthy. And these, I think, are really great opportunities for us to kind of engage in with our children to say, we have to be active participants in our health and wellness and taking care of ourselves. And also to show her, right there, you're showing her, we need to do this together.
Yeah.
We're doing this together. We work as a team, we share things, and we help one another to be the best people that we can be.
I think it's important because your children have expectations. And my daughter lived a very active life. She was an avid dancer, so I'm going from place to place. She was a lacrosse player. So being so active, it takes effect on my body. So there was days when I said, Kalia, Mommy, I think I need to take a break. I can't do it. She's okay, Mommy, I understand. You know, or maybe can we put this off and do it tomorrow? So I just feel like having the open dialogue,
Right.
she was able to understand what I was going through sometimes and be okay with it.
Well, I would think that really teaches compassion with our
does.
children, right? But also, it's showing that all of us need to balance activity and rest, right? Nobody can just keep going and going and going. And maybe you need it in your own way, but she'll need it in her own way. So, I mean, these are, we can look at these little things as gifts, as teaching tools, you know, even in these scenarios where, you know, you didn't want MS, nobody wants
No
it,
one
but
wants it.
you have really just kind of risen to this amazing spot with your ability to kind of just move
We're all
forward.
going to have something. And I just feel like with life,
Yes,
it's
it's-
about perspective. It's like, you know, what they say, half empty, half full. It's just like when I got diagnosed, I was like, well, if I have 10 good years of my limbs working, I am going to wear heels. I'm going to do everything I can do. I even told my girlfriends, if my MS get bad and I can't walk, I'm going to have one of those scooters go beep, 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 beep. I'm going to be pretty. My hair is going to be done. My nail, you guys are not leaving me. I'm going to the club, beep, beep. I'm going on a cruise, beep, beep. They used to laugh at me all the time. But I was serious. Like, if
Yeah.
it really got that bad, like, life is not going to stop because mobility issues, you know, because that's just a small part of life.
Yeah.
And I it's bad to say this. I don't know if it's bad, but I kind of feel like I was here to share my journey, and not just here in this place, but with people in general about MS, because it's anytime I speak, it's like I'm always helping someone. And I feel like God put me here to just be a voice, to help people, because sometimes people aren't able to get over the hurdle. They get stuck. You know, when people pass away, there's a phases of mourning. And I feel like when you're given a diagnosis like this, there's phases. And some people get stuck in the phase where they can't live anymore. And it's okay to be depressed. And it's okay to be sad. But what are you going to do now?
Right.
Because
Right.
what if God gives you 20 more years? Do you want to spend those 20 years being sad? That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
Or do I want to go out in 20 years kicking and screaming, having a ball, and everyone said Kenya lived her best life? And that's how I looked at it.
Such an amazing perspective. And I mean, this is part of why I love you so
Thank
much.
you.
And I consider myself fortunate to know you and to be in your presence. And
Thank you.
the fact that you're so willing to share what undoubtedly, was not all happy and sunshine times, definitely. And you do not downplay it, and you're not in denial about the struggles, but you've always really just searched for the meaning in this and tried to be so positive, and I respect that tremendously.
You have to. Like, it gets overwhelming sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, God, why do I have to have this? Because I feel like I can't plan like other people. It's like I have to be careful. Sometimes like I want to leave my job, I want to do this. But I always have to think about, I have the job with the best health insurance in the world. Where am I going?
Right.
Like, and it's things that you really have to think about.
And that's the reality. I mean, you have to think about that.
Even with risks, sometimes I want to take risks, and I do take them, but they have to be more calculated.
Yeah.
Because I have to think about what's the effect. Is it going to put a stress on my body? Like,
Right.
I've wanted to change careers, and stress is not good, but it's definitely not good when you have MS. So I had to keep everything in balance and just think about the whole picture,
Right.
so that I can maintain my overall health.
Are there any, everything you've said, I think, is just so incredibly meaningful and really poignant. And is there anything else that, thinking back on your journey and looking at your journey ahead, is there anything that you think would be helpful to share with someone, whether they're in a place where they're struggling, whether they're newly diagnosed, whether they're going through some kind of transition in their life, or even if they're in a really good spot? Is there something that you feel we haven't talked about yet today that you'd like to share?
I think the biggest piece with MS, and maybe with any disease, and forget just having a disease in life, is knowing your body. It's like, because it's like my body and I, we're like best friends. If I get tired, I could feel it. So it was like, okay, you need to pull back. You're getting tingly today. Or, like I'm feeling a little numbness. So it's really paying attention to your body. And I think that's the best thing anybody could take from this. Not just if you have MS, but a healthy person. Because sometimes when things are going wrong in our bodies, we're so busy that we're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And for MS sufferers, we have to pay attention to our body because they give us signs. And I talked to you, I was like, and I was like, Carrie, I get tingly, I get tired. Does that mean I'm doing too much? And he's like, yeah, that means you're doing too much.
But the great thing is, though, you were saying, but when you listen to your body and you rest and you kind of back off a little bit, then things resolve and you kind of go back to your baseline and you're like, okay, that was my body telling me, put the brakes on,
And I think it's to be compliant, like with your healthcare. And I know it gets overwhelming, like you have followed the doctor's orders, take your medication, and I've become a little non-compliant recently, only because sometimes it gets overwhelming. So I don't want to sound like I'm perfect in no way.
No, none of us are.
Because I told Carrie, I said, Carrie, I can't go to another doctor visit. I can't do an MRI. I was like, I'm spazzing out in the MRI machine. I need more. I need more Valium. So it's like, because I'm a human being, and I can only take but so much. But I was like, okay, time to get back on the ball because I don't want to become so non-compliant that if something's going wrong in my health, that we don't catch it early. And I think that's one of the best things. It's just following your doctor's orders, taking your tests.
But we're a team.
Yeah,
we're a team. Come on.
We are. But some people don't look at it as like a team. And I feel like when you have a chronic disease, you have to have a great relationship with your doctor. Yeah. And if you don't have that, I think that's part of the problem is finding the fit. Like I had my first doctor, I had a perfect fit with him, God bless his soul. Yeah. Then you came along and it was a perfect fit because like every part of my life has something to do with MS. Yeah. So I think the relationship between a patient and their provider has to work.
It's critical.
And if it doesn't work, find somebody else. That
Good advice.
That doesn't mean that's a bad provider. It just it doesn't work.
It's like any relationship, right?
And that's one of the most important relationships that you'll have is like you're my specialist. And even my primary care doctor, I have an immaculate relationship with him. And I feel like if I didn't have the two, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now.
I am so glad that I am on Team Kenya, and I love you so much for sitting down to talk with me today.
Thank you, Carrie. I love you so much. Team Carrie and Kenya.